Welcome to my show. Make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. And make sure you ring that bell twice. Okay, enjoy the show. Cape Town. Jada Pinkett Smith has revealed by the time she was 17, she had already mastered the art of giving herself multiple orgasms. The actress made the revelation in the latest episode of her Facebook series Red Table Talk that she hosts alongside daughter Willow Smith and mother Adrienne Bansfield Jones. With the theme of the show talking about sex, Jada shared with Willow and Willow's Talina Lynam about her experience with sex when she was a teenager. I think by your age I gave myself multiples first, multiple orgasms. I was really into it at one point just because I was in an exploration state and I was abstaining from men. The actress also candidly admitted that she had to stop pleasuring herself as she got to the point where she could make herself climax multiple times a day. I actually think I went through a kind of addiction too with it. And then one day I was like, enough. You're having 5 orgasms a day. The Girl Trip actress, who is mom to daughter Willow, 17, and son Jaden, 19, with husband Will Smith, admitted that she learnt about sex and sexuality from her grandmother, Marion Martin Banfield. My grandmother taught me about self-pleasuring because she wanted me to know that pleasure was from me, the 46-year-old said. She didn't want me to fall into the hands of a man to think that that was him. And she taught me at 9. All right, my 2 cents on this. This is obviously a control thing that has been going on in Jada Pinkett's and apparently her grandmother. My grandmother passed down to my mother, and my mother passed down to me the art of being independent of a man and the art of masturbation. I was taught at 9. This is some disturbing stuff. You know how there's like a age difference and sometimes parents and children don't really see eye to eye on things because it's a huge age gap and everything the parent do comes off as awkward to the child. Their music, the way they dress, etc., etc., etc. Sometimes the child is just downright embarrassed by the actions of their parents or grandparents, especially grandparents because they're more far removed from their generation. So through all that, this one says, you know something? I'm going to teach my granddaughter how to masturbate. Little girl, get over here. Now, I know that most grandmothers teach their daughters how to do their hair, how to cook, clean, take care of themselves, etc., 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 basically increasing their value to men. But you, little girl, I'm going to teach you how to masturbate. Go ahead, sit down and assume a position so we can get started. This goes here, this goes here, this rubs here, this goes here. Lubricate and continue rigorously. I don't know the procedure. I'm just trying to fathom the conversation that could possibly happen in this. You're teaching a little girl how to masturbate? This is perfectly okay behavior, I guess. Because, black community, black women. And the goal was she didn't want me to fall into the hands of a man. Think about that for a second. She wanted her granddaughter to be single for her entire life, and she prepared her for singleness at 9. I don't want you to fall into the hands of a man. The hands of a man? What does that mean? Like, is that a bad thing? Furthermore, what about what she wants? Oh, you got into her head before her desires even matured because I'm assuming that she hadn't hit puberty or anything yet. So you wanted to get into her head and apparently her other parts of her at a very young age so she don't fall into the hands of a man. This is what we're dealing with. This is that whole 80s, because, Jada Pinkett is 46. She was 9 in the 80s. This is that whole 80s liberation type stuff just gone insane. Gone insane. First of all, there's a lot of there doesn't seem to be like any man in this scenario. There doesn't seem to be a grandfather. There doesn't seem to be a father. I'm looking at the names here. The mother's name is Adrian. Let's see, Banfield Jones. So she has a hyphenated name that's different than her daughter's. So there is something going on there. There doesn't seem, maybe the father's last name was Pickett, and because Jada Pinkett is, she's not Jada Smith. So there is something going on there. The father, Mr. Pickett, is not, doesn't seem to be in the household, and this is what's going on in that household. So the mother seemed to attempt to function without the natural born father, and Jada Pickett is following suit. Like, it seems like she's doing whatever she can to ruin the marriage that she has in order to fulfill this prophecy of single motherhood, because she didn't want her to fall into the hands of a man. This is just twisted. And the cycle continues, apparently, and I don't really follow these people's lives like that. I mean, I hear some stories of eccentricities coming from place to place about Jaden and Willow, and I don't know if Willow is into guys like that. If she's not, I don't know if she's been influenced by the mother, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Who knows? But from reading this article, it does appear as if Willow brought a friend, and to this friend, Jada Pinkett didn't directly teach her how to masturbate, but she did sell her on the concept. She was attempting to sell her on the concept. I think by your age, I gave myself multiples first. Now, you see that? Now, of course, women want multiple orgasms, etc., etc., etc. So she's saying, give it to yourself. This is a power play. This is an attempt at independence. She sees a 17-year-old girl and she's like, you know something? Go F yourself. Literally, go F yourself. Enjoy it. Give yourself the multiples. I am giving you the old black grandma teaching daughter how to masturbate advice, because trying to live without man is something that we have passed down from generation to generation to generation. And to the brothers who don't want any part of a culture of women who pass down methods and techniques and manipulations to live independent of men, hey, I do not blame you. That is sick. That is sick. Like, I I don't know what to say. But the reason why I did this video is because I wanted people to see the patterns of behaviors. Because, and this is really what the red pill is all about. It's about understanding. You want to see these traits beforehand. Because, when somebody like Will Smith met her and, maybe he heard a story like this and he just didn't think anything of it. He probably thought it was just like a little, like, oh, your grandma crazy. And just moved on with it. And perhaps he shouldn't have. Perhaps he should have seen it as an extraordinary red flag, especially depending on how the story was presented. If the story was like, oh yeah, this happened and my grandma, did this and blah 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 blah, that's not a good sign, because you didn't see any fault in what your grandmother did. In fact, the way you tell the story here, according to this article, was that you seen the positive of it, because she started you off at 9 and you have been using her techniques. Oh God, this is twisted. You've been using her techniques until you mastered it 5 times a day by the age of 17. 8 years later, you are the master of it. While women like Alicia Keys was learning how to master the piano, you was learning how to master a different organ. Every time I think about it. Dang, I'm trying not to think about something like that in detail. But the way it, the best way to present something like that is I was kind of violated and I was misdirected when I was 9 years old by my grandmother. I had a grandmother who was likely a feminist or a womanist or whatever you want to call it. Basically, she believed that women should be single and independent of men. She didn't tell the story as one of a young girl being misguided because she feels that she was guided properly and she would guide others that way. Before the red pill, people like Will Smith, shout out to him, would just hear the story and take it with a grain of salt. It's just an interesting story about someone's childhood. And that's if it's true. If it's not true, and believe it or not, there is a good chance that this story is not true. What do I mean by that? Okay, so the old black grandma story, the old black grandma trope. People use that often to make something sound wiser than it is. Because if it comes from a 46-year-old woman who has regular meetings with a 17-year-old, it comes off as closer to just peer logic. Like, okay, we're something like peers. We work together. I try to look your age with all of the fish mooney surgeries I can get, etc., etc., etc. I even do my hair like you. I did remember hearing something like that. Like the mother followed the daughter's hairdo. So it doesn't hold much weight coming from somebody with that particular mentality. So she stole the weight of somebody else. This is possible. She stole the weight of grandma and said, this is what my grandma told me. And I am passing down black grandma traditions onto you, young lady who may or may not be black. I'm passing this on to you because this is ancient sage wisdom, not some new age bull crap. It is very possible that this whole story is a lie. And this is another thing I want you fellas to see coming. A woman who can lie about something like this is a huge red flag. And guess what? A woman who's telling the truth like this and not telling it as a tragic story, she's not presenting it like I'm presenting it to you, is also a huge red flag. This woman is riddled with red flags. Do I blame Will Smith for not seeing something like this? No. Because, quite frankly, why would he? This story mixes in with tons of other stories that she probably told about her childhood. Some crazy, some not so crazy, some tragic. It just kind of like blended in. But we tell these stories on here, so when we hear them again for the second time, we'll only hear it once. When we hear it again for the second time, it's like, wait a minute, this sounds eerily suspicious to single woman teaching, strong independent teaching that you are teaching to others. You was just like masturbating regularly and rigorously, and you're teaching others to do this. Trust me. All right. Let me make this clear because I know even with all that was said, and there really shouldn't be much room for it, there might be some misunderstanding, some confusion. I am not against a person masturbating, man or woman. Not really against that at all. Am I against a grandmother teaching a young girl to do it? Oh hell yeah. That is something that that's like, wow. Just like I would be against if at 9 my grandpa came to me with some crap like I do not know, I would flip. Did I masturbate at 9? Yes. Did my grandpa teach me how to do it? Hell no. No. Just no. What in God's no. That did not happen. Thank goodness. So though I'm not against masturbation, and I'm not really against using it as a way to not be so thirsty to the opposite sex that you get manipulated sexually, which I get. I am against the teachings of this to minors. That's just a whole different level of messed up, especially when you're doing it for that reason. So, don't want to make this too long. Just thought I'd share. I mean, I know her grandmother thought that she would share some information too. Oh, God. Oh, God. Hollywood is a twisted place. All right, this is GameChanger 00100. Game over. Peace.